I gotta admit, waking up this morning to see George Pickens had been traded, not something that I was preparing for. Waking up to see George Pickens had been traded to the Dallas Cowboys was definitely something that I was not ready for. And per Adam Schefter over on X, the agreed upon terms are the Dallas Cowboys getting George Pickens and a 2027 sixth round pick from the Steelers in exchange for a 2026 third round pick and a 2027 fifth round pick. But what does this mean fantasy-wise for both teams? For the Dallas Cowboys, who we'll start with, I think this has really good implications. And one thing I talked about during my mock drafts and a lot of the rookie content that we put out prior to the draft was that Dallas should really invest in a wide receiver that can help stretch the field opposite of CeeDee Lamb. It's going to make that offense way more explosive, and it's going to allow more room for CeeDee Lamb to operate in an area where he's much better at. So even though I'm not giving CeeDee Lamb a huge bump over this, because that does mean that there will be some targets going over to George Pickens, it does potentially mean some more efficiency over the middle of the field. CeeDee Lamb now doesn't need to worry about being the guy that runs those deep routes, which, let's be honest, is not his strong suit. He can do it, but it's not what he is really good at. And now he can focus on his work over the middle of the field, those out route, intermediate routes, where he can find some more explosive plays and really do what he does best, create yards after the catch. And with the potential of a safety over the top to help with George Pickens, that definitely gives CeeDee Lamb a lot better opportunity for some bigger plays. Now, obviously, some of the other wide receivers on the team, Jalen Tolbert, Kevontae Turbin, things like that, I mean, take what you will for those guys. They probably weren't going to be game changers on a consistent basis anyway, so I'm not really worried about what their fantasy value is to begin with. For George Pickens, I do think this is a really nice bump up for him as well. He gets to go to an offense with Dak Prescott and an offensive-minded head coach that will be able to utilize his ability down the field a whole lot better. And he can stop catching passes from a bunch of random guys that really just sling it up, and hopefully he does all the work. Now, the Steelers could still be bringing in Aaron Rodgers, and who knows, by the time this video comes out, maybe they already would have, but catching passes from Mason Rudolph all season long didn't sound great to me. George Pickens is definitely going to have some nice upside. It will be inconsistent. He's not going to see the majority of the targets, and he'll be a guy that will have some big games that will win you some weeks, and he'll have some duds that will hurt you as well. George Pickens, to me, at best, is a wide receiver 3 on your team that you can plug and play maybe as a wide receiver 2 or a flex option. If you play in a 3 wide receiver league, that's where I would love to have him more times than not. I do think this hurts Jake Ferguson the most of anybody on the offense. A lot of those intermediate routes are already going to be going to CeeDee Lamb, but now there's going to be targets also filtered over to George Pickens that Jake Ferguson really wasn't going to have to compete with some of the other guys on the roster. So Ferguson is probably going to take a little bit of a bump down in my rankings and will be very borderline tight end 1 at this point. He'll still have some touchdown potential though, so finding his way into the top 12 isn't out of the question. I also love this for Dak Prescott. This really could solidify himself inside the top 12 for the 2025 season. This is a big win for the Dallas run game as well. The names in the backfield for Dallas are not really anything to be super excited about as of right now. Javonte Williams and Miles Sanders will be the 2 veterans. Jaden Blue and Phil Maffa will be the rookies back there. And you're going to see a lot of guys in and out, moved around. Jaden Blue catching passes. Javonte Williams probably being the main back at this point. But having guys like CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens to keep safeties out of the box, to help pull some linebackers away from the line of scrimmage as well, definitely could make the run game way more explosive than what we have seen over the last couple of years. Let's go ahead and talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers now, though. And I'll be honest, I don't really know what Pittsburgh is doing at this point. They passed up multiple opportunities to draft a quarterback, so you have to assume that something with Aaron Rodgers is probably still in the works. But taking away one of the primary weapons on his team definitely isn't something that I was anticipating happening. Now, they traded for DK Metcalf. So they have DK and they have an alpha number 1 wide receiver, but they don't have a great second wide receiver right now to really help take pressure off. you have Pat Freiermuth. Pat Freiermuth is going to get a little bit of a bump up for me based on the potential target share alone. DK Metcalf also going to get a little bit of a bump up for me because he will likely see more targets as well, depending on what they continue to do at the wide receiver position. The rest of the receiving weapons for Pittsburgh, not really anything all that great. You got Calvin Austin, you've got Robert Woods, and you got a bunch of names that don't really do it for me. Now, Calvin Austin has had some up and down big performances, and maybe you see some of those things from him again this season. Robert Woods, he's at the end of his career. He's not really doing anything at this point that's going to get me overly excited. So for me personally, I'm looking at a guy like Roman Wilson. Drafted last year, was expected to be a guy that could potentially play in the slot, move around and do some different things. Got hurt and just was never healthy last year. If he can be healthy in 2025, him and Calvin Austin could be looking at the number 3 targets behind DK Metcalf and Pat Freiermuth. But this isn't great for whoever the quarterback is going to be for Pittsburgh. If it's Mason Rudolph, we already weren't considering Mason Rudolph in fantasy. This solidifies we definitely aren't at this point. And if they do end up bringing in Aaron Rodgers, that's just one less weapon for him to work with, unless they're going to bring in Randall Cobb and Allen Lazard as well at this point. But I'm not loving this for the run game either. The draft pick of Caleb Johnson in the 3rd round I thought was fantastic for the Steelers. He's going to fit that Najee Harris role very well. And you still have Jalen Warren, who's very explosive. But when you take away a deep threat like George Pickens, it allows the safety to creep up into the box, and it allows those linebackers to also play closer as well. I talked about that with Dallas at the beginning of this video. With that deep threat in Pickens and CeeDee Lamb, linebackers and safeties were not going to be able to play as close to the line of scrimmage. Now taking away one of those deep threats, you can play a safety up closer to the line or in the box, and that's really going to hurt the explosive big play potential of the run game. But Headliner Nation, this ended up being a pretty impactful trade for both Pittsburgh and for the Dallas Cowboys as well. So in the comments down below, let me know your thoughts. What are you thinking about this trade? Are you investing in George Pickens this year? Do you think he kind of takes a step forward with some more consistency? Are you staying away from the Pittsburgh Steelers now? Are we waiting on Aaron Rodgers news before we make a decision on them? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. I just gave you everything that I think about both of these offenses, but make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn on those bell notifications. So anytime there's breaking news like today, new content posted, or we go live, you'll know about it right away. You can stay in the know and get all of your football news as quickly as possible. Headliner Nation, stay safe and stay healthy, and I'll catch you all in the next episode of the Fantasy Headliners.
Analytics off the chain, other channels not the same. Jake and Kyle, you know the name. Headliner Nation, we running the game.